In this video, I'm going to give you 2 exercises that can help improve your handlebar turns. So hang tight. Hey guys, I'm Paul the Motor Guy, and welcome to my channel, where I pass on riding tips, practice drills, and defensive riding strategies. Now, I'm a rider coach, a motorcycle sergeant, and owner and instructor at Prorider, Central Texas, where we teach police riding skills to civilian riders. Now, handlebar turns can be very intimidating for riders. Now, I've done several videos on why I think we struggle with this, and at the end of this video, I'm going to leave a link up top and in the description below. Now, the first exercise I recommend is the 360 exercise. Now, this is a great exercise because it allows you to work on gradually starting to turn your handlebars a little bit at a time, while also working on the friction zone, your head and eye movement, and feathering the rear brake. Now, I have done a video on the 360 exercise, but I'm going to cover it again just in case you haven't seen that video yet. Now, there are 5 key things that you want to focus on when doing this exercise. Now, tip number 1 is your head and eyes. Now, as you're making your 360, you want to make a full head turn. And with your eyes, you want to look as far back behind you as you can. If you do a partial head turn, like in this video, this will cause you to go wide. Now, tip number 2 is the friction zone and throttle. You want to be in the friction zone the entire time doing this exercise, because the motorcycle is in a lean the entire time. If you put in your clutch and don't have enough momentum to keep the motorcycle from falling, the motorcycle will fall. Now, you also want your RPM to be steady, ideally anywhere between 1200 to 1500, but this does not have to be exact. Now, let me explain what I mean by steady RPMs. What you want to do is set the throttle and forget it. Now, many of you have the habit of rolling on and off the throttle, which is one more thing you have to worry about. Now, tip number 3 is trail braking or feathering the rear brake. Now, if you find yourself picking up too much speed, this will cause you to go wide. So you can drag or feather the rear brake to take off speed, which will cause the motorcycle to lean more, which will tighten up your 360. If you have too much speed, it will also make it hard for you to turn the handlebars. Now, this is because the more speed you have causes the handlebars to want to straighten out. Now, tip number 4 is counterweighting. Now, you want to use the counterweighting technique when doing this exercise, which is keeping your body upright and allowing the motorcycle to lean underneath you. This will keep your eyes level with the horizon and take away some of the sensation of falling. Now, let's talk about tip number 5, handlebar turn. Now, as you're making your 360 and applying the 4 tips we covered earlier, you then want to start turning your handlebars as much as you're comfortable with. You then need to get out of your comfort zone and gradually start to turn your handlebars a little more and a little more. Now, every time you practice this exercise, try to increase your handlebar turn until you can eventually hit full lock or close to it. Now, for my 360 demo, I will be using 1 pivot cone so you can see my path to travel a little bit better. But you can do this without a cone. If you do use a pivot cone, do not look down at the cone. Remember, you want to always keep your chin up. Now, as I'm riding the exercise, I will start with the handlebar slightly turned, and then I will gradually start to turn the handlebars a little bit more and a little bit more. Now, I will show an overall view first, which will show how my 360 start out wide, and then they get tighter as I continue to turn the handlebars. Now I'm going to show you the view from the handlebars. This time, notice how when I start turning the handlebars, the motorcycle leans more. What? Now, the next exercise to help with handlebar turns is the figure 8 exercise. Now, if you're having trouble with the figure 8 exercise in general, I would not recommend doing this version of the exercise until you're ready. Now, this is because in order to use the figure 8 exercise to improve your handlebar turns, you must shorten the distance between the two pivot cones, which makes this a little bit more advanced. Now, the rule of thumb is the closer the pivot cones are together, the more handlebar turns required in order to get the motorcycle back to the center of the exercise so you can start your next turn. I would recommend starting with about 20 feet between the two pivot cones. Then you can move them closer together as you improve. Now, there really isn't a minimum distance. It all depends on your skill level. So the better you get, you can challenge yourself by moving the cones in closer and closer. Now, I will sometimes do this exercise with the pivot cones about 5 feet apart. But remember, the shorter the distance between the cones, the more handlebar turn is required. Now let's go over how this exercise is done. Now, tip number 1 is when doing figure 8s, you always want to ride to the middle of the exercise, no matter how short the distance is between the two pivot cones. Now, tip number 2 is you want to stay in the friction zone. Now, because of the short distance between the pivot cones, you don't have a lot of time to go in and out of the friction zone. So I would recommend staying in the friction zone the entire time. Now, tip number 3 is your head turns and your eye movements have to be quick and precise. Now, when I do this exercise, I start my head turns and start searching for the middle of the exercise just before the motorcycle gets upright. Now, again, the closer the cones are, the sooner you would need to start your head turn. Now, tip number 4. If you turn your head and look soon enough with your eyes, you will naturally apply enough rear tread brake to slow the motorcycle down so you can hit the middle of the pattern. Now, tip number 5 is turn the handlebars and lean the motorcycle. Now, again, the more you shorten the distance between the pivot cones, the more you must turn the handlebars and lean the motorcycle. Now, tip number 6 is just like any other slow speed maneuvers. You want to keep your RPMs between 1200 and 1500 during the entire exercise. Now, for my demo, I will have the cones at 20 feet apart and then 10 feet apart. Now, the first video will be an overall view of the exercise. So let's check it out. Now, the next video, I'm going to show a handlebar view so you can see how I turn the handlebars. Now next, I'm going to ride the figure 8 exercise with the pivot cones 10 feet apart. Now, I want you to notice that my handlebar turns are a little more aggressive at 10 feet apart than they were at 20 feet apart. Now, this is because at 10 feet apart, I have to have a quicker handlebar turn in order to get the motorcycle set up for the next turn. Now, there are other exercises you can do that will help you with turning the handlebars. But both the 360 exercise and the figure 8 exercise both allow you to improve at your own pace no matter what your skill level. Now, I hope you found value in this video. If so, let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, practice, 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 and ride safe.